nothing is causing pain or discomfort as in joint pain. Muscular discomfort, entirely up to you. If you need to stop and have a little stretch, stop and stretch. If you can keep it going for as long as you can. Usual props, a band. If I don't have a stretchy band, I can use a belt, a towel, little rope to assist with the legs. And then the ball. If I don't have a ball, I can use a cushion or a rolled up towel to create the same kind of effect as the ball. So if you're sitting on the chair, see if you can try and find that nice lift at the front of the body. So it's trying to avoid that slouch, that hunched forward position as much as I can to avoid the compression on the diaphragm muscle, on your breathing muscle. So I'm going to try and see if I can lift myself a little bit taller, a little bit higher. If you're laying down, just taking advantage of the floor, taking advantage of the mat, allowing yourself to relax fully on the mat. The legs can be straight if the back is okay with it, or I'm going to bend them if the back doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel comfortable. And then focusing on the breath. Check first the way you feel that you're breathing from. As we know that often we tend to breathe apically, we tend to breathe to the top of the chest. This is the stressful breath. So see if I can feel myself breathing up here. See if I can think of softening through the throat, relaxing the collarbones and the front of the chest, and then trying to send the breath down into the belly. Think of a nice relaxed belly breath, feeling the belly expanding with the inhalation and then softening, relaxing with the exhalation. So allowing the diaphragm to freely move inside the rib cage, creating that nice relaxed breath. And then as you keep that nice, as you try to find that nice relaxed breath, running a quick scan over the body. So checking where you are and how you feel. So is there any tension, any pain, any niggle anywhere along the body? If I'm lying down, is the pressure between the right and the left side the same? Or am I putting more pressure maybe on my right hip, on my left shoulder? If I'm seated, feel the seat bones. Am I sitting evenly, or does it feel as if I'm leaning more on one side than the other? I'm not changing anything, just noticing where everything is and how I feel to begin with. And then as you feel a little bit more settled, you feel that the breath feels a little bit softer, a little bit more relaxed, and then I'm going to start to focusing on the legs. So starting from the hip joint to see if I can start getting a little bit of a warm up, a little bit of movement in the hip joint. So first thing, I'm going to support the leg. So I'm going to feed the band or the belt around the back of the right leg. So if I'm seated, my foot will be on the floor. If I'm lying down, my leg will come up. I'll just support it with a strap, with the band. And then supporting it, guiding it with the arms, I'm going to use my thigh bone as if it was like a massive pencil. So if I'm lying down, I'm going to try and draw my circles on the ceiling above the hips. Around and round. If I'm seated, I'm going to draw the circles on the wall in front of me. The foot might lift off the ground, it might stay on the ground, it doesn't matter. Just to see if you can be aware of the thigh bone moving into the hip socket. So that little circular movement, trying to get the hip to relax and move around at the same time. So see if I can try and warm up into the hip joint. 3, 2, 1. I'm going to reverse the circle, go the other way. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Relaxing the leg. I'm going to try the same thing with the left side. So I'm going to switch my strap around the left leg, and then I'm going to start to circling around. The same as I did on the right, just a little movement, enough to be able to feel the leg moving into the hip socket. Making sure that the movement is not causing grinding, pinching, or pain. Same as if I'm lying down, I'm going to pick up the leg and then see if I can circle around, keeping the hips nice and still, so making sure that it's not the pelvis that is circling, it's the leg that is circling into the hip joint. 4, 3, 2, 1. Reversing the circle, going the other way. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And releasing down, easing the leg down, relaxing the hip, releasing the leg. It's a little bit more movement through the hip. I'm going to do the similar kind of thing with the shoulder. So focusing on your right arm first. I'm going to reach the right arm straight in front of me. And then instead of fingers, imagine to have pencil on your hands. I'm going to start drawing the biggest circle possible on the ceiling above. So I'm going to start going back, round the side, across the front of the body, and then round again. Whichever direction you want to start, it doesn't matter. If you're seated, the circle will be in front of you. If you're seated, remember that the arm is heavier as you're lifting against the gravity. So I might not be able to lift the arm very high. It doesn't matter, just making sure that it's not straining the shoulder, it's not creating pain in the shoulder as I'm trying to make the movement bigger. And then playing with the position of the hand, so I feel every time that I lift across, my shoulder clicks, or every time that I move out to the side, my shoulder clicks. So as I get close to the point where the shoulder clicks, I'm going to slow down, see if I can change the position of my hand slightly, until eventually I find that position where the arm is going around, and I might actually be able to get rid of that clicking noise. I'm going to try 2 more circles going around this way. And then I'm going to reverse the circle, go the other way. 10, 9, trying to keep the shoulder down, the neck relaxed. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And releasing back, relaxing the shoulder, relaxing the arm. Same thing with the other side. So I'm going to start to bring the arm round. I'm going to try and make the circle as big as possible. The same as I did on the other side, making sure that the movement is not causing pain. And then same as on the other side, if I feel that the shoulder starts clicking, then as I get close to the point where it clicks, I'm just going to slow down. If I can change the position of my hand slightly, and I might actually be able to get rid of that click. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Easing back to the middle, reversing the circle, going the other way. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And releasing back. Relaxing the shoulders, there's a little bit more movement into the shoulder joint. I'm going to try and mobilize it through the spine, so getting the spine going first. First thing, I want to release the stiffness from the thoracic, so that kind of like rounded shoulder, hunched position that we tend to spend most of the day in, whether it's on the computer, on the phone, or sitting down on a chair. So I'm going to think of pushing the chest forward and the shoulders back. So I'm going to squeeze the shoulder blades together. I'm going to try and push forward through the top of the chest, and then I'm going to ease my way back. So imagine somebody behind you or underneath with a hand between the shoulder blades, pushing between the shoulder blades to encourage you to go up and extend, open up through the upper back. Then I'm going to release and then try again. So if I'm standing, I've got quite a lot of space. I can really play with the space to create movement. If I'm laying down, a little bit less space, but I can still get the extension going, because I can picture the shoulders going down through the floor and the back of the rib cage trying to lift away. So see if I can really get that opening and lifting going. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and releasing back. Relaxing the shoulders. Hopefully a little bit of a stiffness from the upper back has been released. I'm going to add a little rotation now. So if you're lying down, I'm going to bend the knees, keep the feet down on the floor. I'm going to raise the arms up to the front, clasp the hands together. I'm going to turn the head to look around the right, and then I'm going to turn my shoulders and swing my arms to the left. So I'm going to turn the head the opposite way. Then I'm going to ease back. I'm going to turn the head to look over the left, and then I'm going to swing my shoulders and my arms to the right. So imagine the spine to be rotating from the top all the way up into the neck. So I'm going to twist it around from one to the other side. So the head is turning in one direction, the body is swinging the other way. If I'm seated, exactly the same. The arms in front of me, I might bring them a little bit closer. If I feel that the load on the shoulder is a little bit too heavy, I'm going to turn to look over the right shoulder, swing the arms to the left, turn to look over the left shoulder, and then swing the arms to the right. So rotating the head in one direction, the body the other. The head in one direction, the body the other. And then again, if you're seated, then I've got more space, so I can try and make my swing a little bit bigger with the shoulders, with the arms, turning side to side. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And releasing back, adjusting the shoulders, adjusting the back. Hopefully the body's a little bit warmer. I'm going to see if I can start activating a little bit more into the muscle, especially trying to get into the around the hip joint and into the leg. So I'm going to start off trying to get the hip flexor going, so the front of the hip. So same as usual, if I'm seated, I can put my hands directly on the right leg. If I'm lying down, it's better to use the ball or the cushion between the leg and the arms. So I don't need to strain my shoulders to reach the arms to get to the leg. And then from there, I'm going to give the ball a little squeeze. So with the hands, I'm going to try and push down into the ball. And then with the leg, I'm going to try and push up into the ball. So I'm going to try and squeeze the knee and the hands into the ball and then release the pressure. Squeeze and release the pressure. As you squeeze in, see if you can be aware of the tension at the front of that right hip, left hip, if you're using the left leg, whichever way. So same as usual, picture those hip flexors like two string, like guitar strings. As I put the tension on, I can feel those, it's almost like a two guitar strings popping up into the hip. And then I'm going to release. I'm going to try and tense and release the tension. Tense and release the tension. So I'm not expecting a big movement as my hands are pushing down and the leg is pushing up. So if I'm seated, the foot is not coming away from the mat. And if I'm laying down, it's the same. The foot is not able to lift off the floor. The arms are pushing the leg away. The leg is trying to lift up. The foot doesn't lift away. But I can feel that tension. I can feel that southern gripping, that southern connection into that front of the hip. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Relaxing the leg, relaxing the arm. I'm going to try the same thing, but on the other side. So I'm going to switch the ball to the left or place the hands directly onto the thigh, and then I'm going to do the same. With the hands, I'm going to push down into the ball. With the leg, I'm going to push up into the ball. Release the tension, and then press again. Release the tension, and then press again. Release the tension, and then press again. So keeping that tension going on and off. Same as on the other side. See if I can find the connection into the left hip flexor. So see if I can be aware of the little tension, the little twitching right at the front of the hip. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And release. Relaxing the hip, releasing the leg. Just a little bit more connection, both right and left side. From the front of the hip, I'm going to start focus on the inner thigh. So I'm going to place the ball between the knees. If I'm seated, I might bring the feet just a little bit closer together than hips width apart. And then I'm going to start pressing into the ball, both legs at the same time. So I'm going to squeeze into the ball, and then I'm going to ease the pressure. Squeeze into the ball, and then ease the pressure. Squeeze and ease the pressure. As I squeeze into the ball, this time I should be able to feel the tension through the inner thigh. So as usual, since you're using both legs at the same time, you might find that if I compare the tension between my right and my left, I might feel that my left is a little bit weaker than my right, or vice versa. So I'm going to pay attention to the weaker side, or to the side that is not responding well. And then if I feel that the leg is not responding at all, is really struggling to get into that squeeze, then I'm going to guide it with the hand. So I'm going to tell the leg where I want it to go, and then I'm going to release. I'm going to encourage it to go in, and then let it relax back out again. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and release. Easing the tension, relaxing the inner thigh, relaxing the hip. So a little bit more activation through the inner thigh. I'm going to change the angle slightly. So instead of keeping the feet close together, I'm going to shuffle the feet a little bit wider apart. So if I'm seated, I should be able to see the feet kind of like on the outside of my knees. So my legs are slightly, I've gone slightly pigeon toes. I'm going to going slightly knock knees. If you're lying down, the feet are slightly wider than the hips. So if I look up, I can just about to see the heels of my feet on the outside of my hips. I'm going to put the ball back between the knees, and then I'm going to press into the ball. I'm still working through the inner thighs, but because the inner thigh muscles, there's quite a few inner thigh muscles, quite a few adductors muscle. By changing the position, I'm trying to target more of them. I'm just going to squeeze gently and then ease the pressure. And then normally when you start turning the leg, changing the angle slightly, you might find that, especially if you're pressing on a ball, if the pressure is uneven, the ball will start kind of like rolling between the knees. So see if I can try and keep the pressure steady, making sure that the ball doesn't roll. So I'm going to squeeze it and then ease it back. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and release. Easing the pressure, relaxing the leg. So it's a little bit more activation through the inner thigh. I'm going to start focusing on the side of the hip. So if you're lying down, I want you to set into climb. I'm going to roll onto my side. I'm going to support the head with the arm, straighten up my back, keep the knees bent. Heels of the feet in line with the back of the hips. I'm going to pull up from the side, pull up from the front of the belly, and then keeping the heels together, I'm going to start opening up into climb. So the top leg, I'm going to turn it out and open it out. The feet are staying together, and then I'm going to ease it back. It doesn't matter if the movement feels tiny. It's not important the size. Just make sure that you're not rolling your hips backwards as you're doing so. So I'm better off using my hand to help me lift the leg and then see if I can control the release, then try to make the movement bigger by rolling my hips backwards. So see if I can keep the hips forward and then just get the top leg moving. If I'm seated, I need a little resistance. So if I'm lying down, I've got the weight of the leg that I'm lifting against gravity, so I don't need anything else. If I'm seated, I need to push against something or pull against something. So I'm going to bring the legs close together. I'm going to hold the band, or easier if I tie the band around the knees, so I don't need to tense my arms to hold it in place. I'm going to hold my right leg nice and still, and then I'm going to start pushing out into the band with my left leg. I'm going to try and stretch the band out. If the band is not elastic and it's a rigid band, I'm going to push into the band as far as the band will allow me to push, and then I'm going to ease the leg back in, back together. Same as I did for the squeezing into the ball. If I need a little guidance with the hand, I'm just going to guide the leg out into that opening, and then I'm going to control the closing back. So see if you can be aware of the tension into the side of the leg, into the side of the hip. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Relaxing the hip, relaxing the leg. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. So if I'm seated, the left leg is going to hold still, the right leg is going to move out. And then come back to the center. If you're lying down, you're going to turn to face the other way. Same starting position. The heels of the feet are together. The knees are bent. The head is supported. The back is straight. I'm going to keep the heels of my feet together and then getting the top leg to start moving up and down. Keeping the pelvis steady, making sure that the hips are not rolling backwards. Using the hand to help me support the weight of the leg if I feel that it feels very heavy to lift. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Giving the hip a little tap, relaxing the side of the hip, relaxing the leg. If you're lying down, rolling over onto the back. If you're seated, undo the band, push it to one side. And then changing the focus onto the back of the hips, the back of the bum. So if I'm lying down, if my back allows me to, I'm going to extend the legs away. If I find that this is too painful for my back, I'm going to have to bend the knees. If you're seated, the legs are bent. What I want to focus on is to try and find the connection into your right bum cheek and into your left. So I'm going to clench my right, relax, clench my left, relax, clench my right, clench my left. As I clench, the muscle tenses and it creates a little push. So the right butt cheek tenses and is going to push my right hip up slightly. So I'm slightly twisted. And relax is going to drop back to level. As my left butt cheek tenses, my left hip goes up slightly. And then I'm going to release it back. This is if I'm lying down. If you're seated, it's a little bit harder, but still possible. I'm going to clench the right butt cheek. I can feel myself going up slightly on the right. I'm going to relax, clench the left, relax, clench the right, clench the left. If you're seated, it helps a lot, or it helps a little bit if you push the foot into the ground. So I'm trying to clench my left butt cheek. I'm going to push my left foot into the floor. I'm clenching my right. I'm going to push my right foot into the floor. And then you might find that to begin with, it's very hard to isolate. As you know, when I clench, I seem to be clenching both. So do clench them both as far as you feel that something is happening, as far as you can feel that the back of the hip or the back of the bum is tensing, it doesn't matter. So if you can, try to focus more on one side than the other. But if I find that that's impossible, I'm just going to squeeze them together. So see if I can get those glutes firing a little bit more. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Relaxing the hips, relaxing the legs. I feel a little bit more connection, so I can feel the two sides squeezing a little. I'm going to try and add a little load. So if I'm seated, I'm going to bring the feet just a little bit closer to the chest. And then I'm going to go into the little half half standing sitting. So I'm going to lean forward into the legs, squeeze with the back of the bum, pushing down with both feet to see if I can raise my hips slightly off the chair, and then I'm going to go back into the chair. I'm going to try and stand and then drop back. So just that little pulling off the chair. If you're lying down, you're going to bridge your way up. So I'm going to squeeze and then pushing through the feet. I'm going to drive my hips up towards the ceiling and then slowly take them back down onto the mat. 2. Little lift, big lift, it doesn't matter. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. And releasing down, giving the legs a little walk, making sure that the back of the leg doesn't feel too stiff, it doesn't feel too tight. So a little bit more connection into the back of the hip. Now I'm going to start to bring a little bit more load to the other areas. So I can feel that the hip a little bit more switched on. I'm going to focus on my hip flexor first. If you feel that you still need a little assistance, you can put the band around the right leg, so I can assist the leg with the arms as well. And then same as you did with the ball earlier, see if you can find the deep connection into the front of the hip. And then I'm going to lift the right leg up. Then pop it down. And then I'm going to lift it again. Take it down. And then lift it again. Little lift, big lift. It's whatever works for the hip. If I'm seated, again, the angle and the leg feel a little bit heavier, so I might not quite be able to lift the foot off the ground, but I'm trying to find my best, to do my best, to feel the front of the hip twitching, connecting, tensing to create that lift. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and release. Relaxing the leg, I'm going to switch the band around the left leg if I feel that I need a little support for that side. And then I'm going to try the same thing with the left side. So I'm going to try and pull that left foot off the floor and then ease it back down. So focusing not on the foot, but the front of the hip. Can I feel those muscles tensing? Can I feel that little twitch to help me pull the thigh up towards the chest, up towards the body? Same laying down, with or without the assistance of the band. If I can get the lift and the lowering. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And releasing back, relaxing the hip, releasing the leg. It's a little bit more activation through the front. I'm going to see if I can get a little bit more connection through the inner thigh. So if you're lying down, I'm going to extend both legs away. Again, if that's too much for the back, I can always work with slightly bent knees. And then think of crossing your right leg over the left. So I'm going to try and cross right over the left, ease back, and then trying to cross left over the right, and then ease back. It doesn't need to be a massive movement, so I'm not twisting myself to get the leg too far to the side. Think of just crossing the ankles. I'm going to try and cross my right ankle over the left and back, and my left over the right and back. If I can't quite lift, think of squeezing the right leg towards the left and relax, and then squeezing the left towards the right and relax. If you're seated, exactly the same. So I've got two options. If I can't, I'm going to lift and cross, drop, lift and cross the other way and drop. If I can't quite get the leg to lift to cross, then I'm going to try and squeeze my right leg towards my left, then come back, and then squeeze my left towards my right, and come back. As far as I can feel the inner thighs working, that's all I want. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And releasing back. Relaxing the hips, releasing the legs, allowing the hips to rest, and then focusing on the back. I'm going to straighten myself up. If you're laying down, keeping the knees bent or straightening the legs, it's up to you. I'm going to go into a lateral flexion. So if I'm seated, I don't need to support the head, as the head is on top of the shoulders already. If you're laying down, you might want to use one hand to help you support the weight of the head as you're carrying yourself from a side, back to the center, and then over to the other side. Think of a little side drop. So I'm not coming forward. I'm trying to move down the side, come back to the center, and then down the side the other way. Come back to the center. So imagine two sets of pulleys that down the side of the waist. The one side is stretching, one side is pulling you down. Then coming back, one side is stretching, and the other side is pulling you down. So feeling the spine moving, making sure that nothing is pinching or catching in the back. If you're laying down, exactly the same, but a little bit harder, as there is a little bit more load into the belly. If I move to the side, I've got to carry my weight to the side. Come back to the center, I'm going to switch, and then go the other way. With the right arm, I'm going to reach down the right foot. With my left arm, I'm going to reach down towards the left foot. And then back. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and breathing back. Allowing the head to go back onto the mat, making sure that the neck doesn't feel stiff, doesn't feel tight. Then if you're lying down, rolling over onto the side, and in your own time, pushing yourself all the way back up into sitting. Finding a comfortable position for the legs, crossing, taking the legs out, bringing them to the front, leaning against the wall of the sofa, using the arms to support you behind. Make sure that you feel balanced there. And then once your legs are set, the same as we did at the beginning, we want to create space at the front of the body. But this time I'm really going to exaggerate that space. So I'm going to start pushing the chest forward. I'm going to squeeze the shoulder blades together behind. And then I'm going to try and lift up. I'm going to try and look up. I'm going to try and look back as far as I can. And then I'm going to release my way. Let the chin drop down to the chest, and the shoulders come forward. I'm going to let myself relax down as far as I can. And then I'm curling back up, lifting through the chest, dropping back from the shoulders, looking forward, looking up, looking back. And then releasing back to the front, letting the chin drop, the shoulders come forward, rolling your way down. Last time. Extending your way up, as much lift, as much space as you can at the front, looking forward, looking up, looking back. And then easing back to the front. One hand to the belly, one hand to the back. Take your bow, give yourself a clap.